Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want to start by looking at a very specific button.
Okay.
It's small, it's usually blue or green, and it's right there on your phone screen. It doesn't say buy. It doesn't say purchase.
It just says get.
It just says get. Exactly. It's the path of least resistance.
It's so inviting.
It is. You're scrolling the App Store, maybe you're bored on your commute, or you just need a simple tool, a QR scanner, a flashlight.
A solitaire game to just zone out with.
Right. And you see 5 stars, slick graphics, and that price tag of, well, $0. You tap get, and it feels like a win.
That little dopamine hit.
Yeah. You feel like you just got something really valuable for absolutely nothing.
Like you found a loophole in the system. Like you're getting away with something.
Exactly. But we have a source today that suggests that feeling is, well, it's a carefully engineered trap. We are unpacking an article by Madison McCollum. It's called The Hidden Cost of Free Apps, What Free Really Means.
And it really dismantles that whole idea.
It completely does. McCollum's main point, the central thesis, is a phrase I think we've all heard.
Oh, yeah. It gets thrown around a lot. The one that says, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
But I feel like it's become a bit of a cliche, We say it, we shrug, and then we just keep scrolling.
We become desensitized to it.
Yeah. I think most people just assume it means, okay, Facebook knows I like sneakers, so I see sneaker ads. Is it really that deep?
That's the danger. We think the transaction is simple. I watch a 30-second ad, and I get to play my game. Fair trade.
Seems like an even exchange.
But McCollum argues it's heavily weighted against you in ways that go way beyond just seeing a banner ad. We're talking about serious privacy invasion, psychological manipulation, and this is the part that genuinely shocked me.
What's that?
Actual physical damage to your hardware.
See, the hardware part is what made me sit up straight. I think we all kind of expect the privacy trade-off at this point.
We do.
But the idea that a free solitaire game is physically degrading my $1,000 phone.
Yeah.
That's new territory for me.
And it's substantial. We're going to look at the numbers later, specifically on battery life, and they are staggering.
So here's the roadmap for today. We are going to break down the true cost of that little get button.
All those hidden costs.
We'll look at the currency of privacy, the user experience tax, the freemium model's mind games, and then that hardware toll. And then we'll talk about how to do a digital audit on your own phone.
So you can go from being a passive user to, an active gatekeeper.
Okay, so let's start with the money, or the lack of it. Let's say I'm a developer. I build a really nice weather app, put it up for free. I still have server costs, rent, I have to eat. If I'm not charging the user a dime, how am I keeping the lights on?
You're not selling the app, you're selling the user.
Wow.
Your app is basically a harvesting tool. McCollum identifies this as the primary hidden cost: data collection and privacy loss.
And we're not just talking about vague demographics here, are we? Not just user 1234 is in New York.
Oh, far from it. When you tap allow on those permission pop-ups without reading them,
Which we all do.
you're often granting access to your precise location history, your browsing habits, and maybe the most invasive one, your contact list.
The contact list always feels like the red line to me. That's not just my data anymore.
No.
That's my grandmother's phone number. That's my doctor's office.
It's a whole network graph of everyone you know. And that is incredibly valuable. See, the app developer usually isn't the one using the data. They just package it up.
How so?
They bundle your location ping from 8 a.m., your browsing from 8.55, your contacts, and they sell that package to third-party data brokers.
And these brokers, what do they do with it?
They build a shadow profile. They stitch together a digital version of you from all these different sources. They know you take a certain train because of the weather app. They know you're looking for baby clothes. They know who all your friends are.
And then that profile gets sold to advertisers.
In the best case scenario, yes, but it's the granularity of it all. That's the cost. It's the total loss of anonymity.
It's not just seeing a billboard.
No.
Yeah.
It's like having a stranger follow you into a store, whisper your birth date in your ear, and hand you a coupon for something you were just thinking about.
That is a terrifying image.
It's meant to be. The app knows who you are, and that is the price you pay for 10 minutes of entertainment.
Okay, so I hand over my personal dossier.
Mm-hmm.
I accept that I'm being tracked. But then I open the app, And bam,
A 30-second video ad.
for some other game.
Yeah.
This is the user experience tax McCollum talks about.
Right. And we tend to just dismiss this. It's just a nuisance, we think. We roll our eyes, wait for that little X to appear.
It's just a commercial break, right?
But it's worse than that. McCollum points out that on a phone, this isn't just a visual thing. It's a functional drag on your device.
How do you mean?
To serve you that video, the app has to download assets, run scripts, sync with the ad server. It's doing a lot of work.
So my free puzzle game is suddenly acting like a heavy-duty streaming app in the background.
That's a perfect way to put it. It slows everything down. It creates lag. You're trying to drag a puzzle piece, but it stutters because the app is busy loading the next ad.
The app's main job becomes delivering ads, and the game is secondary.
Exactly. And there's a security angle here, too. It's called malvertising.
Malvertising.
Yeah, these ad networks are huge and automated. Sometimes bad actors slip malicious code into them, so you don't even have to click the ad. Just having it load on your screen can expose your phone to adware.
So by keeping the gate open for ads, I'm basically creating a backdoor for malware.
You're increasing your attack surface, to use the security term. You're letting strangers into your living room.
Now, there's another category of free that I think is even more insidious, the freemium model.
Free to play, pay to win. This is where the industry has really mastered human behavior.
How does McCollum break it down? Because I think we all like to believe we're too smart to fall for it.
Everyone thinks that. I'll just play the free levels and then stop.
Yeah.
But the game is designed with what they call pain points. They create friction. It's just frustrating enough to make you consider paying.
Like when you run out of lives or you hit an impossible level.
Exactly. An impossible level you can't beat without a specific booster. And the solution is always...
Just 99 cents.
That's the key. The microtransaction. If the game asked you for $50 up front, you'd laugh and delete it. But 99 cents. It feels trivial.
But then you do it 3 times a week.
And suddenly, 3 months later, you've spent $40 on a free game. It's death by 1,000 cuts. For many people, the free version ends up costing way more than a paid version would have.
It's the sunk cost fallacy, too. Once I've spent $5, I feel invested.
Precisely. You feel like you can't quit now or you wasted that money. So you spend another $5. You're paying a premium for the illusion of a deal.
Let's pivot to the technical side, because this is where this deep dive really gets into the nuts and bolts. Let's talk security infrastructure.
Okay, so this is a structural argument McCollum makes, and it's really compelling. If a developer releases a free flashlight app, where is their budget going?
I'm guessing.
No.
Marketing. Trying to get more users.
User acquisition and ad optimization. Exactly. They need millions of eyeballs to make the pennies add up. So they have very little incentive to invest in, high-end encryption or regular security patches.
The code itself is probably sloppy.
It's often spaghetti code, yeah.
Yeah.
Patched together quickly. And since they aren't charging you, there's no support team to call. This leaves users way more vulnerable to data leaks.
And if their server gets hacked and my data is stolen,
oh, wow.
you get what you paid for, which was nothing. A paid app has a reputation to uphold. If a $10 app leaks data, that company is in big trouble.
But if a free flashlight app leaks data...
The developers just fold the company, rename the app, and launch it again next week.
That's bleak. But I want to get to the statistic you mentioned at the top, the battery life one.
The aha moment. I think everyone listening battles with their phone's battery life. We blame the phone. We say, oh, this battery's 2 years old, it's dying.
We internalize the blame. We assume it's our fault.
But McCollum cites this huge study of 2,000 Galaxy phones, and it points the finger at the software. Walk us through this 28.9% number.
It is staggering. The study found that 28.9% of daily energy drain happened while the screen was off.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause on that. The screen is off.
Completely off.
The phone is in my pocket. I'm not playing the game. I'm not using the flashlight.
You aren't using the app, but the app is using you.
How? What is it possibly doing in the dark?
It's running background processes. They're called wake locks. The app literally forces your phone's processor to stay awake instead of going into a deep sleep.
To do what?
It's pinging servers to update your location. It's preloading video ads so they play instantly next time you open the app. It's syncing all that profile data we talked about earlier.
So it's essentially mining my battery to do work for its advertisers.
That is a perfect way to put it. It is energy theft. You pay for the electricity to charge your phone, and the free app is burning through nearly a third of that resource just to run its business model.
That explains so much. You wake up, you haven't touched your phone, and it's dropped 10%. And physically, all that activity generates heat, which degrades the battery chemistry over time.
Exactly. Heat is the enemy of batteries. So these apps aren't just using your charge for the day, they are shortening the total lifespan of your device.
It feels like we've pulled back the curtain on a pretty messy engine room here.
It's not pretty.
We have privacy theft, financial manipulation, security risks, and now physical battery degradation. The word free seems completely ridiculous.
It is a misnomer. There is no such thing as free software. There's only software where the payment is hidden from you.
So, what do we do? The natural reaction is to just want to throw your phone in a river.
And we shouldn't do that. We just need to change the power dynamic.
This is what McCollum calls the digital audit. I love this because it's actual, actionable advice. So where do we start?
It starts with a mindset shift. You have to stop being a passive user and start being an active gatekeeper. The first line of defense is permissions.
I am so guilty of this. I just want the game to start, so I just tap allow, without thinking.
We've all been conditioned to do that, but you have to break that muscle memory. Look at what an app is asking for. My column uses the flashlight analogy, and it's perfect. If a flashlight app asks for access to your contacts list...
Why does a light bulb need my grandma's phone number?
Exactly. It doesn't. There is no functional reason for that other than data harvesting. If the permission doesn't match the function, deny it. Or better yet, just delete the app and find another one.
And there are always other options.
Hundreds. Which leads to the second step. Community vetting. Read the reviews.
But not just the star rating, right? Because we know those can be faked.
Ignore the stars. Read the 1-star and 2-star written reviews. Look for patterns. If you see 5 different people saying, "This app drains my battery," or "The ads are impossible to close," believe them.
They're your early warning system. It's like checking for bed bugs before you book a hotel.
Exactly. A little research saves a lot of itching later.
Now, your advice includes a tip that sounds kind of counterintuitive. You call it the paid paradox.
This is my favorite takeaway from the whole thing. Sometimes the cheapest way to use an app is to actually buy it.
Walk me through the math on that.
Okay, so let's say you want a good weather app. You get the free one. It tracks you 24/7. It drains your battery running ads, and it annoys you with pop-ups.
So the cost is high frustration, high battery use, zero privacy.
It worked. You pay $3.99 for a premium weather app, a one-time purchase.
$4.
$4. And now the developer answers to you, not an advertiser. There are no ads. There's no background data harvesting. The battery drain is tiny because the code is clean.
So by spending $4, I'm saving the wear and tear on my $1,000 phone, I'm keeping my data private, and I'm saving my own sanity.
In the long run, the paid app is cheaper in every way that matters. It's an investment in your own digital hygiene.
That's a really compelling way to put it. It's about value, not just price.
It is.
There's one more layer to this audit. It's about where we get our apps. Source hygiene.
This one is critical. Only download apps from the official storefronts, the Apple App Store, or Google Play.
I know some people like to sideload apps from websites to get paid games for free.
That is the digital equivalent of eating a sandwich you found on the sidewalk.
Ah, okay.
Third-party sites are the Wild West. They don't have the security scanning that Google and Apple do. If you download a free version of a paid game from a random site, there's a very high chance it's bundled with a keylogger or even ransomware.
So stick to the walled gardens. It's safer inside.
It's not perfect, but it is significantly safer, yes.
Okay, final step. I'm looking at my phone right now. I have pages of folders. I have apps I downloaded for a conference 3 years ago.
The purge.
The purge.
You have to delete them. This ties directly back to that 28.9% battery stat. Just because you aren't opening the app doesn't mean it isn't running.
It's still sitting there in the background pinging a server.
Potentially, yes. If that old conference app is still tracking your location, it's wasting your battery. McCollum recommends a quarterly purge. Scroll through. If you haven't used it in 90 days, delete it.
It's digital decluttering.
It clears storage, it stops background processes, and it reduces your attack surface. If the app isn't on your phone, it can't leak your data.
It seems so simple, but we act like digital hoarders.
We do. We think, oh, I might need that one day. If you need it, you can always download it again.
This has been, well, a true deep dive. I don't think I'll ever look at that get button the same way again.
Good. That's the goal.
Let's recap. We started with the allure of free, but we realized that free is actually a very, very expensive business model.
We learned we pay with our privacy through aggressive data mining. We pay with our user experience, with our wallets through freemium games.
And physically, we pay with our hardware.
That stat, nearly 30% of battery drain happening while the screen is off, that is the smoking gun for me. These apps are basically vampires.
They are. But remember, the takeaway here isn't fear. We're not telling you to go back to a flip phone.
Though sometimes, that sounds tempting.
It does. But the real takeaway is mindfulness. It's about understanding the machinery behind the screen. When you know how an app makes money, you can make a smarter choice.
It's about taking back some agency. You can still use the free app, but just do it with your eyes open.
Check the permissions. Read the negative reviews. And don't be afraid to spend a few dollars for a version that actually respects you as a customer, not as a product.
Be the customer, not the merchandise.
I want to leave all of you with a final thought to mull over. We talked about the flashlight app a few times. Such a simple utility. But think about this. If a tool requires you to surrender your location and your private contacts just to turn on a light, are you actually holding a tool? Or are you holding a surveillance device that is just renting you a light bulb in exchange for your secrets?
That's the question.
Think about who is really holding the flashlight. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.